Okay, so there's a question that has been on my mind, right? As somebody who has recently become passionate about Africa, if I've been recently become passionate about Africa, like 2021, when I was 2021, 2022, when I was working within an African fintech, and then realized that like the funders, the founders, nobody really cared that much about Africa. They were using that tag, or like, it's just business, right? There is no moral obligation to do anything that benefits the continent in any significant way, right? But we're going to get into that later. So that experience is what brought me to the point where I was like, no, if we don't build for Africa, if Africans don't get passionate and get serious about building leverage for ourselves, then we're in trouble. Now, the good news is, very recently, there seemed to be a wave of, is it pro-Africanism? I don't know if that's a word, man. I'm so unread on this. But there's this pro-African sentiment that is growing, which is great. Part of it was Trump coming into office with the whole USA thing happening, pulling funding for like international funding, and Africans go like, okay, we need to build for ourselves. But what I've seen happen in the wake of that is there is still this dependency and the need for the West to value us. Right, and this is a problem. Like, it's a problem in our internal economy. So, for example, in Ghana, I know for a fact that the guy who's gone to Harvard, the guy who's worked at Meta or LinkedIn or wherever, the guy who has a UK number, is more likely to get a job than me, even if I'm more capable, competent, more connected, and more context-aware than he is. Because the African mind is tuned to see everything African as risk and to see everything non-African as value. Okay, and that could be explored in a different video in detail. But the main issue here is that, like, we as a collective are so obsessed with getting validation from the West. And there are two specific things that has happened in my ecosystems online that has made this, that has brought this home for me. One was this designer that I follow, incredible designer, by the way. I can't remember his name. I'll see if I can put it in the screen. He was complaining about how Adobe excluded Africa from their global creative challenge, right? So Adobe announced a global creative challenge. It was supposed to be everywhere, in the world, and then Africa couldn't apply, I don't know if it's all of Africa, but it seems like that was the case, right? And then he made a post, and he was like, no, this is wrong. Like, why are we paying for your products? Why are we paying for your software, but we are not allowed to be a part of this thing that you're calling global? So global is global, but global is in African. Africa is still part of the global scene. And then in that thread were a lot more people, Ghanaian, Nigerian mostly, who were complaining about how Adobe basically was treating African creatives, right? It's like, we can't buy subscriptions from here, right? Like a whole Adobe, like people use your product, and people use it, but why can't we pay on the continent directly and just procure your services? And I get it, I get the frustration, I understand it, but I feel like a lot of it is misplaced because you are the people are asking Adobe to behave out of moral obligation, right? And that's the thing. These guys are running a business. They are not a charity. Like, they may talk about CSR and all this, but like at the end of the day, they are business that exists to maximize stakeholder value. Now, here's what you need to think about. For a business like Adobe or Google or Meta or anybody to do anything in any region, the revenue or the profits or the potential value overall that they're going to get from that activity has to far outweigh the input. Right? Now, I don't know all the details, but I know enough to know that for Adobe to be able to accept payments directly from anybody, from any card, anything in Africa, it comes with like a bunch of compliance issues, both on the security level and on like the financial level, infrastructure, dealing with government policies, taxes, like all these different things. Like, there's so many layers that is required for Adobe to just like turn on payments, right? It's not automatic. Even if they can do it easily, it's not automatic. So if I'm Adobe, the question I'm asking myself is, okay, what is the cost benefit analysis of that particular thing? How many creatives are there on the continent that are paying for Adobe products? And again, it's important because majority of creatives I know are not paying for Adobe products. They're bootlegging them, right? And for good reason. It's expensive, okay? And not good reason, but like it's understandable, right? So if I'm Adobe, the question I'm asking myself is like, what's the real value of going through all that work to make this service available with as much ease to this group of people in this particular region? And if the answer comes back, from our financial analysis and everything, that it's not worth it, I'm simply not going to do it. And I think that's the thing that so many of us don't understand, right? We keep thinking these businesses are here as some moral entities that are acting on, like, no, they are pure cost benefit arbitrage engines that are looking at inputs versus outputs and looking at the delta between that. And if my outputs far away my inputs, then I'm going to make a decision. And that request and that need to feel included and to feel respected in the same way, whilst valid, I think can easily be misplaced because we are not getting to the root of the motivation behind how these people act and why they make decisions. And I'm going to talk about what the implications are later in the video, right? But the second thing that I saw online that kind of, I don't know if it made me angry or I don't know what it did, but like the second thing that I saw online was this spoken word video by IB Quick. Now, I'm a spoken word artist. Well, used to be. I don't perform actively anymore, but I still write and I still direct stuff. So from a creative standpoint, I love that video, right? It has bars and bars. Like, it did a good job with representing the ideas, like, you know, talking about Africa and, you know, picking out all the different cultures and in a way that you can resonate with. And I think that's incredible. But the fundamental thesis of that message is still part of the problem. See, that video was trying to convince outsiders that Africa is valuable, right? It literally starts by saying, hey, do you think, you know, Africa is risk? And I'm like, yeah, it kind of is, right? And that's my thing. Like, I don't think the motivational stuff works the way we think it should, right? It's not going to have the impact that it should. And that's not even the problem. We should motivate, and I'll state how I think we should motivate. But I think the core essence of that video is that it's addressed to the wrong audience. It's the same thing that was happening with the Adobe situation. Africans begging the rest of the world to take us seriously. Africans begging the rest of the world to take us, you know, to put money in us, to value us. And that's what that video was doing. And there's nothing wrong with pitching yourself. But the question is, what leverage do you have? Like, what's the leverage? Because telling me about the hustle of the market woman in Kumasi who is turning profit, even though they don't have a spreadsheet, is good sentimentally. But as a business person, I'm like, that's a problem. That's why that business has never been able to grow into a multinational. Like, that right there is the issue. What you're touting as this beneficial thing is in itself the issue. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't anything to be said about the resilience of Africans, but that resilience is not the trophy that we think it is. It's not the incentive for the outside world to come and invest in the way that we think they need to come and invest, right? And so it's the same issue here, which is like Africans are so obsessed with the rest of the world taking us seriously and imbuing value on us, right? And that doesn't help us make progress any more than all the things that we've been doing in the past. And so many different things have gone viral. Like, a bunch of white people went to raise money building the future of Africa, and people are complaining. And I'm like, yes. Does it suck? Absolutely. But what is happening? Can we look at the truth of the matter instead of just like living in our sensibility? The truth of the matter is, whoever controls the capital controls the power and decide what to do. A bunch of white people have money and they've seen opportunities in Africa. Of course, they're going to give that money to a bunch of other white people that they trust to be able to come here and take advantage of the opportunity. That is just business. There is no moral obligation that anybody has, any other country or anybody else has to like make us like, my people, I think we need to stop this. We need to stop this over obsessing like with the West and trying to get them to value. So what do we need to do? Instead, we need to speak to ourselves. See, that video would have been more powerful if it was saying that, hey, I see you as an African, I see you hustling, I see you doing the hard work, and I believe there's levels to go. Here's the future we can create if you grow in XYZ ways. That video should be calling our leaders. That video should be calling the people in power and authority, challenging them to higher status. That video should be painting a picture of what Africa can become if Africans take ourselves seriously. I think it's very misplaced in the fight that we're trying to fight to make the continent move forward, to focus all our efforts on the outside. And I think that's a problem with with the current pro-African movement. We're still begging, just masked as some false sense of confidence. Right now, this is my opinion, but I'm passing this opinion as somebody who's like spent time with businesses here, spent time with global businesses, had conversations, been in rooms that kind of got me to understand the inner belly and the workings of how these global businesses think. They will exploit resources insofar as it helps them achieve their own goals. They do not care about you. And even if they do care about you, they only care about you to the extent that they benefit from you. So this plea that we are making to the West masks as creative confidence about where the ish. I just think that is misplaced. So what do I think the solution is? Well, I've stated one of it, but I think Africa needs more visionaries. I think Africa needs more dreamers who are painting a picture of what Africa can be as a result of Africa's own primary efforts. That's it. The creative energy that we have, the creative effort that we have, everything we are doing should be geared towards how do we get us to rise up? How do we get our mindsets to change? How do we create initiatives that are funded by us, driven by us, controlled by us, that is meant to elevate the status of our institutions, of the individuals, of our educational system? Like, how do we take the leverage that we have and use it? And it's not an easy thing to do, but we're certainly not going to make any progress if we keep pandering to the West like the way we've been doing, right? And it's, man, it's so frustrating because I have like several conversations, several business deals, like trying to help different startups raise in meetings, government related, and it's the same problem over and over and over again. So do we need more activism? Yeah. Do we need more creative people to tell stories? Yes, but we need to change the stories that we're trying to tell. Enough of this trying to appeal to the West to value us. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. And even if they do value us, they are still at the advantage. What we need to do is build leverage by developing our internal resources, by creating new value, by like going heavily into value add, by working with each other, by exploiting the value that is intra-continent. Because once we start to do that, then we can begin to gain the outside attention. But if we do get that attention, we have leverage. But right now we don't have any leverage. We are not building any leverage. So of course, if the VC comes, it's going to come in a way that gives them the power. Of course, if we get DFI, that DFI is going to come with terms that we don't agree with, we don't like, but we're going to take it. Why? We do not have leverage. So whilst I love the energy that is coming up from the continent right now because of all the different things that are happening, I think it's still heavily misplaced because we have the wrong focus. We are still trying to get the West to value us. And I think that's a wrong move. I think we need to speak to ourselves. We need to challenge ourselves. I think we need to paint pictures of our own future and commit to build our future. If we can do that, or at least if we can commit to doing that, if we can start that journey, I think we have a much better chance in a couple of decades, maybe in the next century, to get the results that we want. But right now, we're still playing the exact same games, just in different colors and in different shades. Of course, this is my personal opinion. I'm not saying this as fact. I'm limited in my knowledge and in what I know and what I don't know. But from my neck of the woods, from where I sit and what I've seen, what I'm seeing, what I observe, what I know, these are my thoughts. So let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. But that's my 2 cents. And I hope it can start a conversation about, what we are doing, what we need to do. And yeah, I'll see you around. Cheers.